Welcome to Mastermind Conversations, a Pro Insights podcast, powered by Geek in New York, where we don't just talk, we geek it. We break down complex topics, research from trusted sources, and bring your expert insights, real-life stories, and actionable tips, all in a clear and engaging way. So get ready, it's time to geek it with Mastermind Conversations.
Welcome to the deep dive. If you've been, dreaming of transforming your house, maybe adding some space, updating a room that feels a bit tired, or just generally thinking about tackling a home remodel, especially if you're here in the vibrant Austin area, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Yeah.
We've gathered a whole stack of your source material, articles, notes, research bits, and our mission today is really to pull out those key nuggets of knowledge.
Those practical insights, maybe some surprising facts too.
Exactly. Things you actually need to feel informed.
That's right. Think of us as sort of your guides through this complex world of home renovation. We're aiming to help you cut through the noise, figure out what's really important from all these sources you sent.
And it covers a lot, right? From finding the right people all the way to the nitty-gritty technical details and those big design choices.
It does. Everything from vetting contractors to, the specifics of plumbing pipes and insulation.
It might sound like a ton, but we'll break it down, make it digestible, maybe even a little fun along the way.
Hopefully.
But first, a quick word from our sponsor. We're really proud to be supported by Modern Vision Remodeling Experts. They are genuinely one of the most trusted remodeling companies serving Austin and the surrounding areas. They've got years and years of experience making homeowner dreams come true.
Modern Vision Remodeling Experts, they really do know their stuff. Their focus is on things like, high-end kitchen remodeling, luxurious bathroom renovations, full home remodels.
Right, and additions, attic conversions, even exterior upgrades.
Yeah, like roofing, siding, windows, painting, building those really nice decks people want now.
What I think really stands out from what we've seen is their focus. It's not just about the construction itself.
No, it's more holistic.
Exactly. They're focused on creating spaces that are functional, yes, but also beautiful and, importantly, tailored to your unique style. Spaces that actually improve your quality of life.
And you can see that commitment in their reputation. Those 5-star reviews really tell a story.
They really do. So if you're even considering a project in the Austin area, they are definitely a team worth talking to. You can reach them at 512-905-5624. We'll mention them again later on.
Okay, let's dive into this source material then.
Okay, let's unpack this. When you're thinking about a remodel, whether it's huge or something smaller, the very first, probably most critical decision is, well, who are you going to work with?
Absolutely. We saw that emphasized over and over in the sources. Finding someone reliable, trustworthy, a contractor or builder you click with, it's just paramount.
You really can't overstate it.
No. And one of the core takeaways from the material is just how important a really thorough vetting process is. It goes way beyond just, getting a few bids.
Right. So how do you actually do that vetting effectively? The sources had some really practical tips.
Yeah, like always check references and not just get the list.
Actually call them. Yeah. Talk to the past clients.
Exactly. And ask specific, kind of revealing questions when you do. Like, did they stick to the timetable? That's a big one.
Huge. And did the project stay on budget? Another major stress point if it doesn't.
For sure. And I really like this specific question the sources suggested. Ask, what could this contractor have done better?
Oh, that's smart. Why?
Well, it's sort of a less confrontational way to uncover potential issues, right? Even if the client was generally happy, they might mention something small that gives you insight. It gets past the standard, oh yeah, they were great.
That's a really good tactic. Avoids putting people on the spot, but still gets you useful info. The sources also pointed to some online resources, like builder directories.
Yeah, places like eplans.com or dreamhomesource.com were mentioned. Good starting points, maybe, for finding names.
But the vetting doesn't stop there.
No way. And one really fascinating part of the sources gave us a peek, sort of behind the curtain, into the contractor's own process. They talk about the role of the general contractor's estimator.
Right, the person who figures out the costs.
Yeah, but it's more than just crunchy numbers. They work closely with the project superintendent, and they're evaluating cost, sure, but also the schedule, the quality implications, safety considerations for every single part of the job.
Down to specifics, like the source mentioned concrete work cast in place versus precast. they analyze all that.
Apparently so. And they analyze all the bids coming in from the subcontractors, the plumbers, electricians, painters, trying to find the lowest qualified bidder.
The source called that buyout analysis.
Exactly. And he even mentioned that some GCs might try to buy down those subcontract prices a little bit, even after the bid is technically won, sort of negotiating a final price.
Wow, that really highlights how much financial juggling and logistical planning happens before a hammer even swings.
It totally does. And choosing a team that has that kind of robust internal process is pretty vital for keeping your project on track budget-wise and schedule-wise.
Makes sense. And navigating all those complexities, especially the bidding and cost management, that's precisely where having a seasoned pro really helps.
Like Modern Vision Remodeling Experts right here in Austin. They've got that local knowledge and experience.
Definitely makes you appreciate the layers involved. Okay, so you found your team, you vetted them thoroughly. Now, you need to understand the building itself, right? Here's where it gets, well, really interesting for me anyway. Remodeling often means digging into the nuts and bolts, the structural stuff, the technical bones of the house.
Exactly. The sources actually gave us a pretty significant look into these areas. Let's maybe start with plumbing. That came up quite a bit.
Okay, plumbing. Sounds good.
The main takeaway isn't that you, the homeowner, need to become a master plumber overnight.
Right, thank goodness.
But it's that these systems are, well, they're intricate. And they use a whole variety of materials and methods. Understanding that helps you appreciate the work involved.
Okay, so what kind of variety are we talking about? The sources mentioned different pipe types?
Yeah, several. There's cast iron strong, but apparently harder to work with, often repaired with plastic now.
Yeah.
Then there's PVC, that rigid white or gray plastic pipe.
You see that a lot under sinks.
Right. Resists heat and chemicals pretty well. Then there's PEX, that flexible plastic tubing, becoming really common for water supply lines, also used in radiant floor heating.
Oh, the bendy stuff.
Yeah. And flexible copper too, which bends easily, unlike the rigid copper pipes.
And these aren't interchangeable. I assume you use different ones for different things.
Correct. And they're joined in very specific ways. You use solvent cement, basically glue, for plastic pipes like PVC.
Okay.
But the sources emphasize you need clean cuts, remove any burrs, clean both pieces, apply the right glue, sometimes a primer first for PVC, then push and twist them together and hold. Specific glue for CPVC, which handles hotter water.
Seems precise. What about copper?
Copper is usually joined by soldering or brazing, which involves heat and solder, or by using compression or flared fittings, which are mechanical joints. Though the sources noted flared or compression joints aren't typically allowed underground, except maybe for the main service line.
Got it. And cast iron.
That uses mechanical joints, or sometimes caulked or threaded joints with special adapters. And connecting different materials, like joining the house sewer line to the city main if they're different types or sizes. They mentioned using these elastomeric coupling seals with stainless steel clamps.
Wow. Okay. So lots of different connection methods. It really shows why you need skilled plumbers, right?
Yeah.
One wrong connection
Could mean big leaks, major problems down the road. Absolutely. The sources even got into the specific purpose of different pipes in the system.
like beyond just carrying water.
Yeah. You have sanitary or soil pipes. Those carry waste that includes human excrement. Then waste pipes, which only carry liquid wastes, like from sinks or showers. And then, really importantly, vent pipes. These don't carry water. They carry air to and from the drainage system.
Why is that important?
It protects the trap seals. You know the S-curve pipe under your sink?
Yeah.
That curve holds the little plug of water, the trap seal. It blocks sewer gases from coming up the drain and into your house. The vent pipes provide airflow so that water seal doesn't get siphoned out when water rushes down the drain.
Ah, okay. So those vents going up through the roof are actually crucial.
Very crucial. Prevents unpleasant smells and potentially dangerous gases. Maintaining those seals is surprisingly important for indoor air quality.
Good to know. And speaking of things homeowners might actually encounter, the sources ran through some common plumbing fixes too, right?
They did, like the classic leaky faucet. Often, it just needs a new rubber washer or an O-ring replaced. Depends if it's an older compression type or a newer cartridge faucet.
Okay, usually not a huge deal then.
Sometimes, you might need to clean the valve seat where the washer presses. And if it leaks around the handle itself, that might need what's called a packing washer or packing material tightened.
What about toilets? They seem to act up sometimes.
Yeah, the toilet that keeps running or doesn't flush right. Often it's the flapper, that rubber thing at the bottom of the tank not sealing properly. Might need replacing.
Or maybe just adjusting.
Could be. or adjusting the lift chain or wires that connect to the handle, or even just the water level in the tank itself using the float mechanism. Usually simple adjustments.
Okay. And the inevitable clog.
Yes, the clog.
Yeah.
Always start with the plunger. That's usually the first line of attack for sinks and toilets.
The trusty plunger.
If that doesn't work, the sources mentioned using a hand auger or plumber snake for sinks and toilets. For traps under sinks, sometimes a flexible wire or spring can reach the blockage.
And for really tough ones.
Then you might need a power auger, especially for blockages further down the line, like invasive tree roots getting into the main sewer pipe. That's usually a job for a pro.
They even covered floor drains, like in a basement or laundry room.
Right. Often just need to remove the strainer cover, dig out any gunk or debris, maybe use a hooked wire or an auger. And importantly, make sure there's still water in the trap to maintain that seal against sewer gases. If it dries out, you pour some water in.
I thought the note on sweating pipes was interesting too, that condensation you see on cold water pipes in the summer.
Yeah, especially here in humid Austin, right? Usually it is just condensation, cold pipe, warm, moist air, not a leak.
But it could be something else.
The sources said if it's continuous or excessive, it might signal a very slow hidden leak, or maybe a valve not closing completely somewhere. But mostly it's condensation, and pipe insulation can help prevent it.
Good tip.
And one last critical safety point from the plumbing section was backflow prevention.
What's that exactly?
It's all about protecting your clean, drinkable water supply from contamination. If pressure drops, dirty water from, say, a hose left in a bucket of soapy water or from an industrial process connected to the water line could get sucked back into the clean water system.
Oh, right. That sounds bad.
It is. So building codes require specific backflow prevention devices or techniques, like physical air gaps, depending on the level of hazard things connected to the potable water supply. It's another one of those behind-the-scenes safety details professionals handle.
Man, okay. See, just the plumbing system alone is like a whole world of its own.
It really is.
So moving beyond the pipes, the sources also talked about walls, insulation, soundproofing, things that really affect your comfort and energy bills.
Absolutely. Especially key with Austin's climate, managing heat gain and loss.
Right. So what did we learn about insulation? Different types.
Yeah, common types like batt insulation, those fluffy rolls or pre-cut pieces. The key there is it needs to fill the wall or ceiling cavity completely, without gaps, but also without being compressed too much, which reduces its effectiveness. Shake it out to get its full loft. If you use multiple layers, run them perpendicular.
Okay. And there are rigid types too.
Right, rigid fiberglass or foam boards.
Yeah.
They're more expensive, but offer good R value per inch and are, well, rigid. The sources mentioned they can be a really good value used on the exterior foundation walls, but they also help protect the waterproofing.
Interesting. What about houses with steel framing? Does that change things?
It can. Steel conducts heat much more readily than wood, so it creates thermal bridges that let heat flow in or out easily. The sources noted that increasing the R value of the exterior sheathing is one effective strategy for steel walls.
And they mentioned thermal breaks. What are those?
Basically, putting materials that don't conduct heat well between framing members or connections, like using a sill sealer foam between wall framing and the foundation, or putting foam sheathing under ceiling joists in an attic to help block heat gain through the framing itself.
Makes sense. Breaking the path for the heat. The sources also mentioned a common problem spot.
Yeah, especially in older homes or with certain roof designs not having enough space up at the eaves where the roof meets the wall. You need room for both adequate insulation and ventilation airflow from the soffit vents.
Right, you can't just stuff it full and block the vents.
Exactly. So solutions mentioned included using raised heel trusses, which lift the roof structure higher at the wall line, or even just adding an extra top plate to the wall framing to create a bit more vertical space.
Okay, clever solutions. And what about noise, if sound transmission is a concern between rooms or from outside?
The sources talked about a two-pronged approach: sound barriers and sound absorbers. Barriers mean adding mass and density to walls or ceilings, like using staggered stud framing or double walls, adding resilient channels, using special soundproofing board, or even just extra layers of sound-rated wallboard. And critically, sealing every single little gap or crack with acoustical caulk, because sound travels easily through air leaks.
Okay, seal it tight.
And absorbers. Absorbers help dampen sound within a space. Think carpets, drapes, acoustic panels. Controlling vibration was also mentioned, maybe using special padded tape on studs or adding mass-loaded vinyl sheets within the wall assembly.
Got it. So understanding even just the basics of insulation and soundproofing helps you appreciate what goes into making a home comfortable and quiet.
Definitely. It's more that complexity your remodelers are managing, stuff hidden behind the drywall. And another reason why quality work matters so much.
Which again points to the value of having experienced pros like Modern Vision Remodeling Experts here in Austin who deal with these building science details and local codes constantly.
Exactly. They know how to do it right.
Okay. So once all that structural and systems work is planned or underway, you get to the really exciting part for most people, bringing the vision to life.
Yeah, the design.
So what does all this technical stuff mean for how your home actually looks and feels? The sources had some great design ideas, right?
They did. This section really got into creating spaces that are not just functional, but also aesthetically pleasing. Kitchen layouts were a big focus.
Oh, were some strategies there?
But one popular approach mentioned is designing the main work triangle sink, fridge, stove across the back of the room, especially if it overlooks a living or dining area. Creates that open, connected feel.
Yeah, everyone wants that open concept now.
And thinking really practically about placement. Like storing plates and bowls near the dishwasher makes unloading easier. Having pantry items near the range or prep area. Little things that make a big difference in daily use.
And islands, of course.
Islands are huge. For extra counter space, storage, often seating becoming a real social hub in the kitchen. But the source is cautioned. Make sure you have enough clearance around them for doors and drawers to open fully and for people to walk comfortably. Don't just cram one in.
Good point. Easy mistake to make.
And a clever design idea mentioned was having some of the kitchen cabinetry kind of bleed or extend into the adjoining living or dining space.
What does that do?
It helps visually unify the spaces, blurs the lines a bit, and can make the whole area feel larger and more cohesive, less like separate boxes.
Interesting. The sources also flag some specific trends in kitchen and bath design.
Yeah, quite a few. One big one is a shift towards cooler tile palettes. Think silvers, grays, icy whites. Often with glossier finishes making a comeback, maybe moving away from some of the warmer, earthier tones that were popular for a while.
Okay, cool and glossy. What about metals?
Warm metallics are definitely trending for things like faucets and cabinet hardware. Finishes like old gold, brushed brass, copper, providing a nice contrast to the cooler tiles perhaps.
What about countertops?
White limestone was mentioned as still being popular, classic, elegant. But matte finishes in general are gaining ground, moving away from highly polished stone sometimes. And composite sinks are getting more interest-durable, seamless look.
And technology.
Yeah, tech is creeping in, especially in sinks and faucets. Things like touchless operation for convenience and better hygiene, smart features integrated into appliances.
The sources mentioned some specific products, didn't they?
They did, as examples of these trends, like a high-tech, multimedia shower system with things like chromotherapy lighting and body jets.
Wow. Spa bathroom at home.
Totally. And Coniflat shower trays, very sleek, lots of sizes, flush outflow drain. Roman sculptures glass showers were mentioned for bespoke custom options.
Fancy. Anything else?
Hastings Allegro console, an Italian-designed bathroom vanity, comes in various colors and materials. Caesarstone's mineral portfolio was highlighted for being a low silica, more sustainable surface option for countertops.
Good to know about sustainable options.
And Marazzi Rice Collection tile described as having a handmade look in neutral colors, but also a striking blue color option. Lots of texture and visual interest becoming popular.
And wasn't there something about steam cooking?
Ah, yes, steam cooking. The source mentioned it as a kitchen feature that's gaining traction. Highlighted benefits like healthier cooking methods, retaining more nutrients in food, getting juicier meats, even better results when baking bread.
Okay, steam cooking definitely a kitchen trend then. Makes more sense there.
Definitely kitchen.
So beyond the kitchen and bath, which always get a lot of attention, the sources touched on general interior finishing steps too.
Right, the process of actually putting the room back together beautifully. The classic painting order was mentioned. Ceiling first, then walls, then woodwork like trim and doors. Wallpaper goes on last if you're using it.
Okay, logical order.
Then after painting, you typically install the light fixtures, the outlets and switches, and the plumbing fixtures, sinks, faucets, toilets.
Before the final decorative layers.
Exactly. Then comes trim molding baseboards, crown molding, installing door hardware, and finally adding all the decorative touches. Mirrors, rugs or runners, carpets, artwork, and furniture. The layers that make it feel like home.
Color came up too, right? Some advice there.
Yeah, the sources suggested generally sticking to maybe 2 main accent colors in a room. A third could work if it's a subtle variation or maybe metallic accent, or use just in a small element like a stripe on a runner. Don't go too wild with too many competing colors.
Keep it somewhat focused.
Right. And using white strategically, it's not boring. It can genuinely make a room feel bigger and brighter, bounce light around. Then you add your splash of color with things like lighting, furniture, pillows, art.
Pastels and velvet were mentioned too.
Yeah, as ways to add softness or texture in specific moods. Think about the overall feel you want.
Lighting types were mentioned as well.
Floor lamps are great for task lighting, like beside a reading chair or just for decoration. And torchère lamps, the ones that shine upwards, are good for bouncing light off the ceiling, which can make a room feel taller.
And adjustable light levels dimmers.
Always a good idea. Key for flexibility, changing the mood of the room.
One source really hit on the client's role in interior design decisions.
Yes, specifically during the design development phase. The point was that interiors, finishes, colors, built-ins are much harder and more expensive to change later once they're installed, compared to maybe moving furniture around.
Right. Get it right the first time.
So that phase requires really close collaboration and clear decisions between you and your designer. The designer's job is to guide you through those choices, present options, but ultimately you need to be comfortable and confident with the direction before construction starts.
Makes sense. Okay, so remodeling isn't just confined to the inside, right? The sources also talked about exterior spaces.
They did. Discussed creating usable outdoor rooms, patios, decks. A common critique was that these spaces are often built way too small.
Too small to actually use properly.
Exactly. You can't fit a decent-sized table and chairs comfortably, or there's no room to move around. They look okay, but they're not functional.
So what's the recommendation?
The guidance was pretty clear. For rear patios or decks to be truly useful, aim for at least 10 feet deep by 12 feet wide as a minimum. That gives you space for furniture and circulation.
Okay, 10 by 12 minimum out back. What about front porches?
If you actually want to use your front porch for sitting, relaxing as a primary living space, not just an entry, it needs to be wider than the typical narrow strip. At least 6 feet wide was suggested, but preferably 8 to 10 feet wide to comfortably fit chairs and maybe a small table.
Size really matters for function outdoors.
Definitely. Landscape design elements came up too. Things like considering how you place trees.
How so?
Thinking about their placement relative to the house itself, or how they frame a distant view, or maybe using them to screen an undesirable view like a neighbor's messy yard. Evergreens were recommended for year-round screening.
Smart.
And a really crucial point. Always check the tree's mature size before planting. Don't plant something that will eventually overwhelm the house, block all the light, or worse, interfere with overhead utility lines or underground pipes.
Oh yeah, see that happen all the time. Tiny tree becomes a monster.
Exactly. Plan ahead. The sources also mentioned the site analysis process that landscape designers use.
What's involved there?
It's about creating a base map of your property and then systematically noting all the existing conditions. Where the sun hits at different times of day, prevailing wind directions, noisy areas, shady spots, soil types, drainage patterns, good views, bad views, all that stuff.
So you design with the site, not against it.
Precisely. You leverage the good features and mitigate the bad ones.
The sources even got into super specific stuff, like building planter boxes.
Yeah, little examples of outdoor carpentry, showing details like using specific screws designed for outdoor wood, how to cut angles for joints, the importance of sealing the wood properly to make it last longer against the weather.
It just shows that even seemingly simple outdoor projects have specific techniques and materials needed for durability.
Right. It's all part of the bigger picture.
Okay. So we've covered a ton, finding the team, the technical guts of the house, designing the inside and outside spaces. Now, while a lot of these principles are universal, local factors really do matter, don't they?
They absolutely do. Especially when you're talking about remodeling right here in Austin or the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
The local context is key.
How did the sources touch on that? Did they give specific Austin costs?
Not really specific Austin cost breakdowns, unfortunately. Costing is complex and varies wildly, but they did hint at how local factors play a significant role.
Like what?
Well, one source mentioned this law, SB 1037, that exists in some cities. It wasn't specific about Austin, designed to fine municipalities if they drag their feet on implementing state housing laws.
Okay. How does that relate to remodeling?
The point was just highlighting that local city regulations, and especially the whole permitting process, can add layers of complexity. They can cause delays, they can impact costs, depending on your specific city or county and the type of project. Dealing with the potentially sticky permitting process is just a reality homeowners might face.
Right, that local bureaucracy factor.
Exactly. It's something you need to account for in your timeline and potentially your budget.
Oh.
Another source made a really interesting point about design choices related to location.
Oh, yeah.
It mentioned that sometimes a design concept has to be, quote, toned down a little to suit the suburb, and also warned against overcapitalizing. Meaning be mindful of your neighborhood context. Don't invest so much money or create a design so out of step with surrounding homes that you won't recoup the value if you sell. Your remodel should fit the local market to some extent.
That's a really practical financial consideration.
Very much so. And speaking of costs, while the sources lacked specific U.S. figures, there was that reference to £7,000 for British cupboards, which isn't super helpful here.
Right, different market entirely.
But they did discuss things like pavement cost, being sensitive to local soil conditions, which makes sense if you have difficult soil here in Central Texas, foundation work, driveways, patios. It's all going to be more complex and costly.
Local geology matters.
It does. But perhaps more importantly, that estimation source we talked about earlier, it gave insight into the process contractors use to manage costs. And other sources highlighted the challenges firms are facing now.
Like inflation.
Yeah, significant price increases for products and materials across the board. And labor shortages, finding skilled tradespeople. Both of those things directly impact the final cost for you, the homeowner.
So costs aren't just arbitrary numbers a contractor pulls out of thin air.
Not at all. They're driven by real market forces. Material costs, the availability and cost of skilled labor, which can be especially tight in a busy market like Austin, plus the inherent complexity of managing all the moving parts of the project itself.
Right. One source even briefly mentioned a real-life story, didn't it? Homeowners acting as their own GC.
Yeah, for a 7-month project, it just illustrates that while it's possible to manage it yourself, it's a massive undertaking, a huge time commitment, requiring a lot of knowledge and coordination.
Probably pretty stressful too.
I would imagine so. Which, brings us back again to the value proposition of working with experienced professionals.
People who understand the Austin market specifically.
Exactly. Who can navigate the permitting maze, who have established relationships with reliable subcontractors, who know how to manage those fluctuating costs and logistical challenges because they do it every single day.
Yeah, definitely seems worth considering. Okay, so bringing this all together, this deep dive into the source material has really walked us through the whole life cycle of a remodel, hasn't it?
It really has.
From that crucial first step, vetting and hiring the right team, then getting a handle on the often hidden complexities of your home systems, like plumbing and insulation.
The technical side.
Then moving into the fun part, making informed design choices for your kitchen, bath, other living spaces, inside and out.
Right, the aesthetics and function.
And finally, grounding it all in reality by considering those local factors, regulations, neighborhood context, and the drivers behind project costs, especially here in the Austin area.
It's definitely a multi-layered process. Requires expertise across a lot of different fields, really.
It really does. And as you, our listener, are thinking about your own remodeling journey, maybe feeling a little overwhelmed or maybe excited by the possibilities, remember our sponsor,
Modern Vision Remodeling Experts,
who are proud to serve Austin and all the surrounding communities.
Their specialities line up perfectly with what we've been discussing: high-end kitchens, luxurious baths, full home remodels, additions, exterior upgrades. They cover the whole spectrum.
And their goal aligns too, creating functional, beautiful spaces that genuinely enhance how you live in your home. Those 5-star reviews really back that up, showing the trust and satisfaction they build.
They really do.
So if you're in the Austin area and you're ready to take the next step, or maybe even just start the conversation about what's possible for your home, we definitely encourage you to give them a call.
The number for Modern Vision Remodeling Experts is 512-905-5624.
512-905-5624. They have that essential local experience and the broad expertise to guide you through everything we've talked about today.
They can help make that complex process feel much more manageable.
Which kind of leads us perfectly into our final provocative thought for you to ponder.
Okay, let's hear it.
Given everything we've uncovered, the sheer depth and variety of factors involved in a remodel, from, hidden pipes and insulation science to subtle design trends and tricky local permits, how much deep diving into all these technical and design details should you, as the homeowner, really do before you start?
That's a great question.
And maybe, what's the most effective way to partner with the experts you choose to make sure your vision and their execution are perfectly aligned? Where's that sweet spot between being informed and, well, letting the pros do their job?
It's a really interesting balance, isn't it?
Right.
Between being an engaged, knowledgeable participant in the process and trusting the professionals you've hired to handle the intricate details they specialize in.
Absolutely. There's no single right answer. Probably depends on the person and the project. Well, we hope this exploration of the source material has armed you with some valuable insights, maybe sparked some new questions for you to consider as you embark on your own remodeling journey.
Yeah, think about which parts of this discussion resonated most with you. How might these ideas apply to your specific house, your specific goals for the project?
A huge thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for listening.
And one last time, if you're in the Austin area and dreaming of transforming your home, don't hesitate to reach out to Modern Vision Remodeling Experts. Again, that number is 512-905-5624.
That's a wrap for this episode of Mastermind Conversations, a Pro Insights podcast powered by Geek in New York, where we don't just talk, we geek it. We hope you gain valuable insights, learn something new, and are ready to apply it in business and life. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps us bring you even more great content. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and always geek it.